We're all haunted, we just don't know it. Our eyes lie to us. I used to think I knew Berlin and my cab like the back of my hand. But you can't imagine the incredible terror I felt during my night shift that day. You know how it is at night? People drop their masks, even show a side of themselves completely different from the one they wear in the daytime. And yet, 15 years behind the wheel of a taxi hadn't prepared me for what was about to happen. If you come from a small Kurdish town like I do, Berlin is a pretty good choice. I've grown to love this city and my job in it, but it has a dark side, mostly due to the human element. Strange people who seem perfectly normal, even friendly during the day, but completely change once the sun goes down. As a taxi driver, I've learned how to watch and read people. It's no different from the time I happened to give a ride to a fugitive. You wouldn't believe how many of those guys are in Berlin. But it's South, not my place to gossip. I'm just a cab driver. I have a truckload of stories. Some are sweet, some are disgusting. But only one night in all these years has kept me tossing and turning, so terrified that it gave me a chronic stomach condition. It left such a bitter taste that no food I've eaten since has ever brought me joy again. It was the night I met Julius. Usually when I don't have a dispatch call, I just line up with the other cabs at the Nuckeln station. Sometimes it takes hours, just waiting with the other drivers, drinking coffee and smoking. We shoot the shit about life or bet on who is going to score a big fare that night. One time I picked up a guy who wanted to go 200 miles out of town. The money I made that night was almost as much as 3 full nights of work. Julius should have paid me just as much, even though we never even left Berlin. In the end, I didn't ask him for a dime. It was a cold, foggy night, typical for early March. The kind of night you'd much rather spend curled up in bed if you didn't have a night shift like me. I remember it clearly. A blast of frigid, sharp air hit me when my car door was suddenly pulled open. And when a young man with dark hair and dark eyes smiled at me, the chill vanished. "Driver, are you free?" he asked. The guy was maybe in his late 20s or early 30s. I couldn't be sure. But I clearly remember he had a warm, comforting presence. He wore loose-fitting pants and a black jacket over a decent white shirt. I don't know much about fashion, but I could tell the clothes were tailor-made for his frame. He mentioned the trip would be long, and I guess it was his clothes that convinced me he could afford it. I did my usual routine, asking if he had any luggage and if he needed me to open the trunk. Just this. He held up a small package, about the size of a book, and grinned. "I'll keep it on my lap." Then he got in the front passenger seat. People who travel alone and want to talk usually do that. "Where to? You have an address?" I asked. He buckled his seatbelt. "No, I'm not quite sure. How about this? You drive, and I'll give you directions." And that's what he did. For me, as long as the meter's running, it's all good. "Dill, that's a nice name," he said, looking at my driver's ID on the dashboard, which had my name and number on it. "Thanks," I said, starting the car. "It means heart. It's a..." I turned my head to check behind me as I reversed, but my blood ran cold. All the cars behind me had vanished. Not just the cars, but the people too. The area outside the station was terrifyingly empty. I glanced at Julius, but he seemed completely oblivious, still smiling. I swear for a second I saw something flash in the side view mirror on his side, but I blinked and it was gone. "Heart, how beautiful," he said nonchalantly. I swallowed hard and rubbed my eyes. When I looked out again, it was like it had all been a hallucination. Passengers with bags were milling around the cars. Cab drivers stood everywhere with cigarettes dangling from their lips, and a few drunks were shouting loudly. Everything was normal. It was 3 in the morning. This kind of thing isn't surprising during a night shift. Your mind gets foggy. I couldn't let this man see I was rattled. After all, this was a big fare, and I didn't want to lose the income. Luckily, he didn't seem to notice at all and kept the conversation going. "My name's always been Julius, but I still don't know what it's supposed to mean." We both laughed. "Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Julius," I said, and I meant it. As we drove off, we passed a friend of mine, another driver. He tilted his head, his face pale, and watched us leave with a look of deep concern. The look he gave me made my stomach turn, but at the time, I didn't understand what my gut was trying to tell me. I'll occasionally chat with passengers about the weather or the last game, but I'm not a very talkative person. Some people pour out their deepest secrets, but I usually say the least to people like that. But once in a while, I meet someone special, someone who isn't just trying to break the awkward silence, but is genuinely interested in another person's life. Julius was like that. Special. You drive nights often? He asked as we turned onto a particularly dark road. Only on weekends. More fares and better money on Friday and Saturday nights, I said. You must spend the rest of your weekends sleeping. He laughed and I laughed with him. You bet. Sleep is a beautiful thing. What's better than lying your head on a soft pillow for a full night's rest, just relaxing your mind? I said, I completely agree. If I could sleep forever, it would. He laughed, but it sounded a little forced. It's ironic, isn't it? We work so hard to make a living, only to lose the time to actually go out and enjoy life. Despite his confidence, there was a melancholic side to him. His extraordinary charm reminded me of my older brother, and I saw a bit of myself in him, too. I sighed. If it were up to me, I'd prefer a simpler life. A little house in the country with a garden would be enough. Grow my own vegetables, maybe raise a few chickens. I agreed. Julius raised an eyebrow and looked at me. Our eyes met for a moment before I had to turn my gaze back to the road. His eyes were so dark, they seemed to be all pupil. I know that sounds scary, but it wasn't. There was a sense of familiarity. Talking with him was distracting me. It took me a while to realize I was driving down a street I'd never seen before, navigating between multi-story buildings with no streetlights. It was the middle of the night, but still, it felt incredibly strange not to recognize my surroundings. I'm a taxi driver. I always felt like I knew every corner of this city. There must have been a reason you changed your life plan and ended up in Germany's biggest city, Julius said, breaking my train of thought. I smiled. I came here for my family. They don't deserve a pastoral life raising chickens, I said, surprised by my own honesty. I never open up to strangers. No, I never open up to anyone. Ah, Julius exclaimed, leaning back slightly. You're a family man. Of course, you have to be a family man. Everything we do is for our family, right? The way he said it struck me as odd for a second, but I just shrugged. Always. Julius broke into a smile. The conversation paused when we reached Julius's first destination, a small kiosk where he had to drop off the mysterious package. I'll be right back. Wait, he said, looking at me with an unusually intimidating glare. If you're not familiar with these kinds of kiosks, picture a small corner shop with its windows so full of beer crates and glass bottles that you can't see what's inside. I don't know what Julius did in there, but a few minutes later, all the lights in the shop suddenly went out. The little store, which had been my only source of light on the dark street, almost completely disappeared before my eyes. I had a strange trust in this stranger because everything seemed so normal. But the moment he got out of the car, a weird feeling washed over me, an anxious impulse mixed with a sense of paranoia. Something deep inside me was screaming to get the hell out of there. I started fumbling for my phone, but couldn't find it quickly. On impulse, I slammed my foot on the gas to leave, but it was too late. My back door opened. Julius hopped into the car, his dark eyes and familiar, friendly smile back in place. But now he was sitting behind me, not next to me. Where to next, my friend? I asked nervously, praying he hadn't noticed my attempt to ditch him. I don't know why I couldn't just tell him to get out. For some reason, I didn't have the courage. I'm so glad you call me that. Dill, I'd very much like to be your friend, he said, taking a deep breath. Now, just head on down this street. I started driving, continuing to follow my passenger's directions. Eventually, I found myself recognizing the area. We're back in Nuckoln. Dill, my good friend, let's keep talking about family. How are you and your son getting along? I was silent for a moment. We used to be close, but it's always tough with teenage boys, I laughed. Of course, young man. I imagine things are a bit better with your daughter. We drove into another quiet neighborhood with sparse lighting, and I had to focus completely on the road. They used to be. My daughter, well, she's a great kid, but she's been a little off lately. Not herself. You know how teenage girls are, I guess. I shut my mouth. We had been driving in circles, lost in conversation for so long that it took me a moment to realize what had just happened. I had never told him I had a daughter and a son. Oh, yes, she started pulling away from you, locking herself in her room, not eating much. It's truly a shame, but you still love them, don't you? I felt a fear unlike any I had ever known. I had made a huge mistake this night, by trusting this man. Something was very wrong, but I had to try to stay calm. He could have some nasty tricks up his sleeve. "Oh, I love my family. Don't we all?" I said nervously. "No, you don't." Startled by the sudden change in his voice, I looked in the rearview mirror to see his expression. Julius, the man I had been driving with all night, had completely transformed. I saw a creature I had never seen before. His dark eyes, which had seemed so gentle, were now the complete opposite. It was as if someone had jammed a screwdriver into his eye sockets, leaving only black, empty holes. His face was pitted with more holes, sprouting some kind of strange fungus. I was so horrified by the face that I forgot to watch the road and almost slammed into a parked car. I yanked the wheel just in time, holding my breath, trying to summon my courage. My heart was pounding, about to beat out of my chest. It was late. I hadn't slept, hadn't had a drink of water in hours. I told myself it was a hallucination. At the same time, I didn't dare look in the mirror again. "Is something wrong, my friend?" He chuckled. I instinctively turned my head and saw the same Julius as before, perfectly normal, a smile on his face. "I'm so sorry," I stammered. "Been driving too long." Slowly, I tried to regain my composure. "What did you do in that kiosk?" I finally asked, surprised by my sudden bravery. Even if that face was a hallucination, this man still knew things about my kids he shouldn't. His interest in my life wasn't about asking questions. He already knew everything. What did he want from me? I had to get away from him, but I had to be smart about it. So I decided to drive to my brother's house. My brother. He's an intimidating, heavy-handed man. A dark person who isn't afraid of violence. If Julius was dangerous, I figured my brother would know what to do. Julius closed his eyes, and I thought he might be falling asleep, so I quickly changed direction. I tried to stay calm, but my whole body was shaking. As if he could read my mind, Julius's eyes snapped open, and I knew with absolute certainty that this night would ruin the rest of my life. "Don't get clever, Dill," Julius said suddenly in a very low voice. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly I thought the skin on my hands would split. "I know where you're going. Don't. I have no interest in meeting your brother. Not tonight, at least," he said. "How did you?" I stammered. "I know you saw it. In the mirror. You didn't scream, which is good. Around you, I feel like I can be myself," he grinned. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. What I saw hadn't been a hallucination. I don't know how to describe it, but I knew this thing wasn't human. It was just hiding behind a human skin. I'll be honest, because I really do enjoy your company. This wasn't about delivering a package. That was another matter entirely. Tonight was just about getting to know you. A million thoughts raced through my mind, but I only asked, "Why me?" He chuckled again. "Oh, don't worry, my friend. I can feel the whole car trembling. I'm not here to hurt you. It's about your family. It's already rotting from the inside out. I could smell it on you from miles away." I swallowed. "If you don't want to hurt me, what do you want from me?" Julius smiled at me through the rearview mirror, revealing a row of rotting teeth. "I get lonely like this. The fact that your family is already falling apart isn't a bad thing. You see, maybe one day you can introduce me to them." We were on an empty road now. There was no one around, no one I could call for help, but I stopped the car anyway. I felt sick for reasons I couldn't explain. "You're thinking of jumping out. You're wondering if you can outrun me," he sighed. "You can't." I took a deep breath. "I can't," I whispered. "Because you love your family." I nodded. "Because you've noticed your daughter's eyes have started to look a little like mine lately." My body went rigid. He laughed again. "Maybe you should look at her reflection in the mirror, my friend. Have your eyes been opened?"